ሰላም እንደምን ቆያችሁን? ዛሬ እንደተለመደው በሌላ ቪዲዮ ከች ብለናል። የዛሬ ቪዲዮአችን የሂስትሪ ቻፕተር 4 ላይ ከዚህ በፊት በሪሚዲያል ጥያቄዎች ላይ የተጠየቁ ወደፊትም ይጠየቃሉ ብለን ያሰብናቸው ጥያቄዎችን ይዘላችሁ መተናል። ለቻናሉ አዲስ ከሆናችሁ ሰብስክራይብ መደረጉ እንዳይረሳ። ማንኛውም ያላችሁን አስተያየት ኮሜንት ሴክሽን ላይ ጻፍ አድርጉልን። ቀጥታ ወደ ቪዲዮ እንሄዳለን። አንደኛ, which major historical events in 1492 set the background for the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade? A. The signing of the Berlin Conference Act. B. The voyage of Christopher Columbus to the Americas. C. The industrialization of Great Britain. D. The capture of Constantinople by Ottoman Turks. What will be the answer? The answer is B is the best answer. B is the best answer. Why did Europeans turn to West Africa for labor after initially exploiting Native Americans? A. West African rulers volunteered their population for free overseas migration. B. Indian white slaves from Europe successfully satisfied all plantation needs. C. Native Americans died in massive number from European disease and harsh treatment. D. The plantation owned preferred to pay high salaries to African workers. What will be the answer? What will be the answer? The answer is C is the best answer. Because ብዙ ኔቲቭ አሜሪካውያን በዲዚዝ በሞታቸው ምክንያት ነው ዌስት አፍሪካ የነበሩ ስሌቮችን ሞር ወደ አሜሪካ እንዲመጡና እዛው በስሌቭ ስራ ላይ እንዲሰማሩ ያደረጓቸው። ሶስተኛ, which European nation was the absolute pioneer in starting the slave trade along the African coast? A. Great Britain. B. Germany. C. Belgium. D. Portugal. What will be the answer? The answer is D. Portugal. By the way, it's not only Portugal. Spain is one of the starter of slave trade along African coast. Question number 4. What characterized the first phase of the transatlantic slave trade, known as the parotic phase? A. European government tightly controlled trade monopolies through chartered campaigns. B. The trade was conducted by individual merchants and seas robbers without official government backing. C. It was legally protected under the British Free Trade Act of 1689. D. Slaves were exclusively traded for manufactured sugar and tobacco in West Africa. What will be the answer? The answer is B is the best answer. አምስተኛ, in the famous triangular trade phase, what specific items were transported from Western European ports to Africa? A. Sugar, tobacco, rum, and molasses. B. Raw ivory, gold dust, and young enslaved laborers. C. Cotton texture, alcoholic beverage, metalwares, and firearms. D. Heavy industrial machinery and steam engine. What will be the answer? The answer is C is the best answer. C is the best answer. ስድስተኛ, how did the massive accumulation of wealth from the triangular trade impact Western Europe? A. It caused a sudden economic depression that forced government to ban slavery. B. It directly helped finance the industrialization of Western Europe from the 18th century onward. C. It shifted the focus of European power to colonize the Far East entirely. D. It forced European countries to rely heavily on African financial loans. The answer is B is the best answer. ሰባተኛ, the third phase of the Atlantic slave trade initiated by British legal action in 1689 was known as A. Monopolistic trade. B. Free trade. C. The parotic trade. D. The colonial trade. The answer is B. Free trade is the best answer. 8ኛ which European nation became the leader of the abolitionist movement, legally banning the slave trade within its empire in 1807? A. France, B. Portugal, C. Spain, D. Great Britain. The answer is D. Great Britain is the best answer. 9ኛ what was the underlying economic reason for Great Britain shift from supporting the slave trade to enforcing its abolition? A. Britain completely lost its entire manufacturing industry and became purely agricultural economy. B. American population began refusing to purchasing any more labor from British ships. C. Industrialization shifted British interest toward raw material, cheap labor inside African and foreign market. D. African armies successfully blocked all European ports, preventing slave shipping from leaving. The answer is C is the best answer, because British shifts for supporting slave trade to enforcing its abolition እንድታደርግ ያደረጋት industrialization or during industrial period ብሪቲሽ የነበራት ኢንተረስትን በማጣቷ or የነበራት ኢንተረስት ፍላጎት ማግኘት ባለመቻሏ ነው እና ያን ቺፕ የሆነ ላበር from African ጌት ለማድረግ የተጠቀመችው ፖሊሲ ነበር። 10ኛ according to the module, roughly how many young Africans were exported to the American during the entire course of the Atlantic slave trade? A. Less than 1 million, B. Exactly 50 million, C. Around 500,000, D. More than 15 million. The answer is D. More than 15 million. 15 million. 11ኛ Why did Europeans refer to Africa as the dark continent prior to the late 19th century? A. Because its interior was largely unexplored and little known to Europeans. B. Because it lacked any form of natural sunlight along the coastlines. C. Because Africans showed refused to engage in any form of ocean trade before 1500s. D. Because no civilization or organized state had ever developed on the continent. The answer is A is the best answer. European African history ሲከፋፍሉት pre-colonial, during colonial, after colonial ብለው ለሶስት ይከፍሉታል እና pre-colonial ጊዜ dark age ይላታል because ሪል አፍሪካ ዳርክ ስለነበረች እና ሂስትሪ ስላልነበረ ሳይሆን ኢሮፒያን የነበራቸው ኖሃው ምንም ስላልነበረ ነው። ቢኮዝ ኦፍ በደንብ ኢንተርሊ ላርጅሊ አንኤክስፕሎርድ ነበር ኦር ኤክስፕሎር አላረጓትም ነበር ማለት ነው። ለዛ ነው ፕሪ ኮሎኒያል ፔሪድን እነሱ ምን ይሉታል? ኢትስ ዳርክ ኤጅ ይሉታል። 12ኛ which two European powers completed their national unification around 1870, subsequently altering the balance of power and during the colonial race? A. France and Austria, B. Britain and Portugal, C. Germany and Italy, D. Spain and Russia. The answer is C. Germany and Italy is the best answer. 13ኛ before industrial capitalism sparked the full scramble, why did Europeans primarily maintain coastal trading posts rather than conquering the interior? A. European armies were entirely forbidden by international law from stepping inland. B. The posts were established primarily to serve American interests, particularly slave trade. C. African interior terrain consisted entirely of imperceptible active volcanoes. D. European nations lacked any maritime transport ship to reach the shores. The answer is B is the best answer. 14ኛ which European power occupied Algeria in 1813 and later expanded into Senegal? A. Great Britain, B. Italy, C. Spain, D. France. The answer is D. France is the best answer. 15ኛ what was the strategic objective of German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck in encouraging colonial revival between France and Britain? A. To help Britain secure an interrupted empire stretching from Cairo to Cape Town. B. B. To divert France from planning a war of revenge against Germany after its humiliation in 1872-71. C. To establish an international democratic parliamentary run entirely by African kings. D. To completely dismantle the industrial infrastructure of Western Europe. The answer is B is the best answer. 16ኛ Which European monarch independently hired the explorer H.M. Stanley to stake personal claims in the rich Congo basin starting in 1876? A. King Victor Emmanuel of Italy. B. Emperor Wilhelm of Germany. C. King Leopold II of Belgium. D. King Louis Philippe of France. The answer is C. King Leopold II of Belgium. 17ኛ The historic international meeting held in 1884 to 1885 to peacefully partition Africa and avoid war among European nations was A. Treaty of Versailles. B. Berlin Conference. C. London Colonial Agreement. D. Paris Peace Conference. The answer is B. London Conference is the best answer. Oh no, the answer is B. Berlin Conference is the best answer. 18ኛ What primary condition did the Berlin Conference impose on European power to validate their territorial claims in Africa? A. Securing the democratic written consent of 100% of the local African population. B. The immediate construction of a transcolonial high-speed railway system. C. Converting all European colonial administrators to indigenous traditional religions. D. The establishment of effective occupation and nations of other power. The answer is D is the best answer. 19ኛ By the year 1900, which were the only African territories that managed to preserve their independence from European colonial rule? A. Algeria and Egypt. B. Ethiopia and Liberia. C. Congo and Southwest Africa. D. Nigeria and Angola. The answer is B. Ethiopia and Liberia. By the way, Liberia wasn't any kinds of war. በላይቤሪያ ላይ ምንም አይነት ጦርነት አልነበረም። ላይክ ኢትዮጵያ እንደ አድዋ የመሳሰለ ጦርነት ተደርጎ ነው ኢንዲፔንደንት ማስከበር የቻለችው። ላይቤሪያ ትራንስ የሚያደርጉባት ቦታ ስለነበረች እሷን ኮንኩዌር አላደረጓትም ነበር ማለት ነው። 20ኛ who was the chief architect of the British colonial policy known as indirect rule? A. Albert Sarraut. B. Cecil Rhodes. C. Lord Frederick Lugard. D. Marcus Antonelli. The answer is C. Lord Frederick Lugard is the best answer. C. 21ኛ What was the core administrative feature of the British indirect rule system? A. Replacing all traditional king with newly elected European democratic president. B. Governing through exerting traditional African rule under the supervision of British officials. C. Enforcing the complete assimilation of all African into British culture and language. D. Abolishing all local taxes and funding colonial projects purely with British treasury gifts. The answer is B is the best answer. 22ኛ The French policy of colonial administration, which stood in stark contrast to the British system, was known as A. Indirect rule. B. Democratic federalism. C. Company rule. D. Direct rule. The answer is D. Direct rule. The main difference of French colonial power and British colonial power was ብሪቴኖች indirect rule ነበር፣ ፍራንሶች ግን direct rule ነበር የሚያደርጉት። Which of the following describe a fraudulent method frequently used by European agents to secure territorial rights from illiterate African chiefs? A. Holding internationally monitored democratic referendums. B. The use of fake or descriptive territories. C. Purchasing land using European paper stock option. D. Submitting land dispute to the United Nations Court. The answer is B is the best answer. 26ኛ What factor bombed internal slave trade in the second half of the 19th century using the Horn of Africa specifically affected Ethiopia? A. The total digital revolution taking place inside Ethiopia's urban factors. B. The direct economic intervention of the League of Nations. C. The introduction of modern firearms and territorial expansion during regional conflicts. D. The total collapse of the world demand of the agricultural product. The answer is C is the best answer. 27ኛ which slogan was popularized to illustrate the unprecedented global scale and geographical reach of the British colonial empire? A. Liberty, equality, fraternity. B. The sun never set over our colony. C. Effective occupation or nothing. D. Blood and iron. The answer is B is the best answer. Because of the expansion or because of the largeness of the British colony, the major or the one popular slogan was the sun never set over our colony was it on the British colony empire. 28 In the late 19th century, Ethiopia, which group of Sudan's merchants historically dominated the northwestern long-distance trade route. A. The Jalaba, B. The Jabarti, C. The Afkada, D. The Safar. The answer is A. The Jalabi is the best answer. During the final quarter of the 19th century, King Menelik of Shawa granted a campaign seat named Late Marafia to which foreign organization? A. The British Anti-Slave Navy, B. The German Industrial Association, C. The Belgian Rubber Corporation, D. The Italian Geographical Society. The answer is D. The Italian Geographical Society is the best answer. 30ኛ which of the following represent a profound and destructive cultural consequence of European colonial rule across Africa? A. The total preservation of all pre-colonial African political freedom. B. The rapid and equitable destruction of heavy industrial technology to all citizens. C. Africans were systematically disunited and forced to accept foreign cultures and language. D. The complete absence of any economic exploitation or tax burden. The answer is C is the best answer. የዛሬው ቪዲዮአችን ይህ ይመስል ነበር። ለቻናሉ አዲስ ከሆናችሁ ሰብስክራይብ መደረጉን እንዳይረሳ። ሰላማችሁ ይብዛ። ሰላም